Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's FPV Podcast. This week, we got on a great personality. Haven't talked to her in quite a bit of time, but we're going to catch up. She has like a zillion projects that she's working on, so there's going to be a lot to talk about. But before we get into all of that, Elvin, what do you have?
Hello. That's what I have.
There we go. This podcast is so important to Elvin that he's not going to do his spiel. That's how important it is to Elvin.
I do have something, but
no. You're too late. No.
Wait.
He just wants to thank Poly Nation for all that love. Gotta give it up for Pulse batteries.
There you go. Now see. This is everybody. I want to introduce the queen of FPV, the queen of 3D FPV, the queen of FPV, y'all. Everybody, welcome to our show, Zoe.
Hey, everybody.
My sister. How you doing, sis?
Oh, alive. A lot better. The coffee is definitely kicked in, and I'm alive again. Yeah, so I don't even know where to begin. It's been a long time since I've been on the show. A lot of stuff has happened. My life is, I would say, almost completely different, except for the fact that the only thing that's the same is that I still live and breathe drones from beginning at the morning to the end of the time when I go to bed.
I'm down for the passion. Down for the pack.
Now, last time we talked to you, you were actually still living in a house. So, like, what was the transition to RV living? What brought on this, like, massive change to travel all over the universe?
So, I mean, it was kind of like life just kind of pushed me off a cliff and I had to jump. And thankfully, I was able to land into an RV. But getting back into that, it's been a crazy life. Like, a lot of people know me for living out of Santa Cruz. I lived there for a good 16, 17 years of my life, like the majority of my life. I'm only 27. Mm-hmm. So it was a big change, but what led up to that was, I guess, kind of sad, but kind of needed. I just couldn't make FPV work full time, especially living in Santa Cruz. My rent was $16.75 a month, and after I moved out, they raised it to $19.50. Yeah, so just think about that. That's almost $24,000 a year going to rent, and there's even some of the best people within FPV, like Drew. I don't know how much he's making. I'm not going to even say how much he's making. But let's just say that it's very hard to live in Santa Cruz on that income, and there's a lot of people that have been pushed out of that area. Thankfully, one of my fans and friends, and someone who actually knows Santa Cruz well and was kind of pushed out of that area too, he saw what was going on in my life, realized that, hey, Zoe, you need to stay in this community. I got you. And he donated an RV to me. Nice. So I ended up basically gathering what funds I had, started a GoFundMe at that point. Mm-hmm. And then Stu made a video about, my situation and how people should help me, and that blew things up immensely. And then I had this giant internet hug of love, and the community was amazing. Like, and this has all happened over the last 2 months. At that point in time, I was just overwhelmed, but I only had about a week from the point in time I made the video about realizing, oh geez, I absolutely need to be out of here. I can't afford next month. I have nowhere to go, and I don't have all the funds together to just, I don't know, live extendedly somewhere. To move everything physically would have been difficult. I had no plan. So within a week time, I got an RV donated to me. I ended up getting the funds situated to get the RV running. It was the big thing. The RV was not running when it got donated to me. I had to travel 8 hours down south in California, get help to get it running, get new tires for it, redo the master cylinder, redo, I had to get the generator running. Basically, it had been sitting for about 10 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it was in really good shape. Otherwise, very, very low miles. Only has 20,000 miles on the odometer.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like this thing still has a good at least 50,000 miles if I'm hard on the transmission before I have to think about any kind of horrible problems. At least
Mhm.
well, in theory, it's a good
In
machine.
theory,
This
yes.
is the
Knock
best.
on wood.
This is the best running machine that I've ever owned.
There
Let
we
me
go.
put better than any of my motorcycles, better than the car I bought my mom. This is legit. So yeah, so I've been putting a lot of time and energy into that. Simultaneously ended up getting a job offer of sorts to go work for a government contractor helping them build some cool drones.
Yes.
My life is still in transition. I'm still trying to figure everything out, but I'm definitely figuring it out. I'm now working, doing what I love, and then I'm coming home on the weekend to work on stuff that I love, doing other projects.
Projects, hobby stuff.
Like through this
What I like.
process, I have not stopped doing stuff.
But at least you're doing what you love.
I mean, it's work. I mean, I'm spending 14 hours a day on drones.
Mm.
Like this is, I think, the thing that this is actually a really important topic because I would say originally when I got into drones, this was my escape. I mean, I was stuck in bed with medical complications. Absolutely, like when I started flying, I had to use a cane to get out to the field, have someone help me put the drone down, lean my stupid butt up against a tree, and fly a battery. And that was my escape back into the world. And then I got into drone racing, not for money or glory, but because, hey, there's this drone race coming to town and it sounds like fun. And so I practiced and trained for it for 2 months. I ended up winning that. And that was the first AMA race in the United States. And the rest, a lot of people say, is history. But that's the biggest thing is it started off as me as an escape of me loving it because FPV is such a magical thing. And then ended up me sharing it on my media, sharing it in social media, sharing it everywhere in the world. Eventually, it ended up turning into a job where I wasn't getting paid. And it's, in a sense, I was still spending money and putting money into something that I wasn't getting any kind of income from. I mean, all of the products I've worked on in the past, up until my official Z logo, the purple and gold one, I never made a dime off of any of those. So I've contributed a lot, and I basically felt like I've been spitting my legs for years, for this ideal that never really came. And I guess the reason why I kept doing that was the main thing that, well, it was sold to me. After winning that first race, the race organizer sidelined me and said, Zoe, you can do this for a living. Even with your broken body, you're awesome at it. In 6 months, you can be able to make this a full-time job, that this is going to be able to be what you can do for the rest of your life. And I took that as, yeah, my life sucks. This is awesome. I want to put my life into this. I love FPV. I love competing. I love getting better at something I'm passionate about. I went full gung-ho. And so when you watch interviews with me back in the day, you could hear the passion in my voice. Like, I absolutely adore FPV and still do. But again, after a while, it started turning into a job that I wasn't getting paid for. But wanted to do because it was fun, because it was awesome to see my ideas being turned into reality, to be able to work with manufacturers to create new products that actually make a difference and change the world. I mean, changing the world, even if it's a small change, like, oh, hey, there's bigger ESCs on the market that now allow this machine to go faster, allow giant drones to exist, or 3D propellers that allow a machine to do things that wasn't possible before. Or now with the 3D Whoop project, trying to make a little micro 3D drone that can be flown anywhere and do 3D anywhere.
Man, you are working on too much stuff, Zoe. That's all I'm saying. But before we get into all of that, you know, kudos to the community for stepping up, helping Zoe out, and you know, we're all thankful that you're in a good spot right now. You have a home, you're enjoying what you're doing, and you know, you continue on, you know, your journey. I think all of us who has been in FPV, who's tried to make, you know, their niche in it, knows how hard it is. You know, when an industry starts up, it is not an easy journey. The first few people who step out there, they struggle, and it struggles mightily. And I'm glad that you're finding some modicum of success through it, and hopefully you will continue to have success through it.
Oh, I was just going to say you're dead on. I mean, this is the beginning of a whole new industry. I've been lucky and I would say cursed and blessed. Blessed with the fact that I've been able to be at the very beginning of it, but cursed in the fact that I've also been at the very beginning of it and
Yes.
dealt with all the problems. So, yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, it is what it is. Let's talk a little bit about something that you have been really known for and you've actually invested a lot of times in, which is, the big drones, the giant drones, the XClass, however you want to call it. Can you give us a little update on what's going on there and your involvement in this?
Yeah, so that's a full fun subject. So, for those that may or may not know about XClass and giant drones, back in, I'm going to go back to Drone Nationals 2016. Even before that, this is about Drone Nationals 15, actually. There was hints of the idea of giant drones and what they meant and what the idea of racing them would be. And there were several organizations or groups that got together to try to make it happen. And as a pilot, I just wanted to race a giant drone. And so I heard about these races that were supposedly going to happen at Drone Worlds 2016. There was supposed to be a giant long-range drone race. I thought that was cool. So I worked with a couple sponsors to build up a setup and kind of spend some time to get it worked out. Lo and behold, there was no giant drone race at Drone Worlds. But what there was Chris Ballard of Freedom Class at the time and Team Von Drone. And Team Von Drone has been in the game of drones since before FPV was really a thing. Like, these are like hardcore drone enthusiasts, people that have been in the industry longer than it's been an industry. They really stepped up to the game in Hawaii and brought this giant 1200 millimeter octocopter. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was an octocopter. It had 8 motors. The original one from Kevin Sellers. And Chris Ballard of Freedom Class at the time said, "Hey, Kevin, I bet you can't, or I dare you to hit one of those gates with that." And so the next day, Kevin took it out for a demo for everybody and actually put it through a mini quad gate, this 1200 millimeter octocopter through a freaking mini quad gate. And dude, people lost their minds. They're like, okay, we get it. That's big. They kind of had a little bit of an inkling, even though it wasn't like the race everyone wanted. For the people that were really watching and paying attention to that moment and excitement, that was when we knew giant drones were a thing that really needed to be a thing. And so I even kind of poked Ballard at the time about wanting to do Freedom Class, and there really wasn't anything for me to do. And Drone Worlds kind of didn't have the giant drone racing that I wanted, and I had a rig back at home waiting to be flown. So I kind of challenged Team Von Drone and Kevin and got Tattoo on board and helped organize the first giant drone race in the US. So being a racer originally, now I'm helping organize a race and race in it because I want this thing to happen. This is at the back of 2016. That event happened. The race was epic. Even though it was just 2 people racing around a course, very, very simple course, it was still extremely exciting. And I remember the adrenaline that was pumping through my veins as I was flying this massive ship and chasing this other massive ship. That was the moment that really sold me on giant drone racing. That was the moment I'm like, you know what? There's still challenges in capturing it and trying to bottle this experience, but it feels good. And so then I edited a video together, and I did a video of the first event, and that kind of got a spark in the internal group. And XClass Giant Drone Racing was born. So instead of having a group that was dedicated to making giant drone racing a reality, we were a group of people that just made it happen, that formed a group around it. So that was kind of the birth of XClass, and that's one of the reasons why I'm a key founder and a true founder of like the actual group. The business actually started about a year after, and that's where things get tricky. There was core members of the group that really wanted the community to flourish and for them to be able to continue the original vision of, you want to make giant drone racing happen, all it takes is drones and the freaking passion to do it. And that's what made XClass grow across the United States, were pilots that wanted to make it happen and having a template for making it happen. Then you had the business side, some people in the group that were trying to change XClass in ways to try to make a commercial product that could be sold to make money, which ironically was something we all talked about at the very beginning and said we all didn't want to do. So that kind of group got really, I don't know, a few people. There was a lot of open communication initially. We'd all talk openly. And then we all elected a CEO, and the CEO sidelined everybody, and and by everybody, I mean the owners of the company, the 12 owners of the company, and sidelined communication and shut it down. And so problems started to arise because of communication problems. This is my opinion. This is, again, talking about openly, but not trying to be inflammatory, because I feel like it's part of history, and one day I'd really like to be able to look back on it and be like, yeah, that happened. But yeah, anyway, so the group was very, I don't know, started tearing itself apart from success. Like, I've seen it happen before in groups. Like, you get a taste of success doing something, you're like, oh shit, it goes to people's heads. They get egos about it, then egos start clashing, and then it starts tearing apart communication, and stuff starts falling apart. So that started happening at a very high level, and to the point where arguing got to the point of just bickering and calling people names and threats. It became, at least for me, mentally unhealthy. And I think that's also what led to that's also why I left, and also why the outburst I had online about all the issues I was having with the group internally. Because something I started here, something I started to be awesome, and to hopefully move the sport forward, turned into a bunch of my friends bickering and yelling at each other.
Yep.
It happens. Yeah.
It sucks. It sucks a lot. But I don't know what to do, because I still want to support XClass. I am still in support of giant drone racing. That will never change. I am, if anything, going to be the world's biggest XClass cheerleader now. Because I believe in that vision.
Yeah, as one of the things that you develop a concept and you work on it, and sometimes you're pulled away from stuff, and in some cases it's life, some cases it's terms that you don't want to deal with, and sometimes you have to step back and watch things go through a phase, and hopefully on the other side of the phase you guys will intersect again, and that's why I like me in this industry, or well, in RC industry period, I kind of like, I will step, if you want to take run with something, I will okay, go ahead, I got time. I'm not going nowhere. I'm the base group, right? So I'm going to watch you try to do what you do. I'm going to always be there to help you out if I can. But if I feel that I can't support you fully 100%, then I have to step back and let you take charge. And sometimes I have to watch you stumble, and that's probably what's going to happen in this case. Since I've been around long enough, I can kind of make a little bit of steps forward, right, in the future, because I've seen stuff happen before. And in this case, I'm saying you're just going to have to watch them stumble so that you can meet them on the other side of those stumbles with better correlating ideas. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because the thing is, I still love every person in that group, and I think that's the thing that hurts, is it's a stumble. I feel like the group has already started stumbling a bit, and I honestly feel like there is something on the other side, and that's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah,
I still planning on holding XClass events. If anything, I'm want to start holding a few XClass freestyle events along with some small races. Last year in Oregon, the West Coast Throwdown, we had the first ever XClass freestyle event, and we had 14 people with giant machines doing giant freestyle for the first time. And visually, it was really neat because spectators could put their goggles down, everyone operating on the same channel, so they don't have to switch channels around. You could see what's going on in the goggles, and then you could lift up your goggles and be amazed by these giant machines just floating through the air and doing crazy stunts.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, and I wholeheartedly agree with Elvin. Most of the time, there needs to be time apart, and then you come back together to make it bigger and better. I think that for true friends, sometimes they do drift apart a little bit, but they always come back together, and that's what we're gonna hope for, and that's what we're gonna push for, because I truly think for any industry or any type of specific sport to really grow, you need everybody. You may be able to have conflicting interests, but I think all parties involved will eventually realize you need everybody, and everybody's important to that.
It's all hands on deck kind of thing, man.
Right. And we wish you, like the story continues for XClass as we say, and we wish everybody wish everybody the best of success in that journey, because
we'll see you guys at the West Coast Throwdown.
And thankfully, XClass isn't the only thing going on in my life.
True.
And I've got a lot of good things to focus on right now.
That's true.
It's definitely not in a bad place. In a weird way, I feel like the last few months I've been able to have the opportunity to cut out a lot of negativity in my life and a lot of, I guess, bad stressors, whether it be bad sponsors to talking about and dealing with situations with things that I love. I don't know. I feel like it's bringing a purity to things again for me. Like, I started flying again for me. Like, I've actually gone out again and started flying without strapping a GoPro to my equipment. Even though I have
that's the Zoe I miss. That's the Zoe I miss.
And that's what I miss. But yeah, so I'm getting back to what makes me me. I'm never gonna forget that. Like, I've taken breaks from FPV before, generally like very quietly and only for a short amount of time. And every time I do, I come back to it twice as hard. Like, I cannot quit it if I tried.
Well, that's good to hear. So let's go ahead and move on to some of the other projects you've been working on. We all know that you've been working on a frame for quite a while. It's been a very long journey, like many things in FPV. Catch us up on your unicorn frame. Where's it at nowadays?
Yeah, so for those that don't know the unicorn frame, it's one of my favorite new things in the world. I've been working on this since 2017, the end of it. I did up the first drawings. I've done several revisions of it. I've worked with a couple different CAD designers to kind of take my idea and put into CAD. And it failed multiple times because I wanted to make a frame that wasn't necessarily the traditional flat-packed mini quad. I really looked at, because I've been flying them for a while, and I kind of have an idea of what I want for a 3D 5-inch. Not kind of, I have exactly an idea of what I want. So, for example, the camera allows for negative tilts, so you can actually do negative tilts. So when you're upside down, if you really want to, you can have positive tilt. If you have a GoPro, it has very neutral / low amount of, I guess, tilt for the GoPro. It has like a direct GoPro session mount, so you just strap on a strap, you're good to go. It has a clean dirty plate system, so the top plate and the camera and the battery is on a clean section, and the dirty section is where your motors go, which essentially your motors and props generate all the noise. So it's got some neat features on that. It's got a neutral center of gravity, so it puts the center of gravity very much in the center between the props. Like a lot of people, if you've played Kerbal before, or if you're, up on math, your center of gravity and your center of thrust, when you have those two things matching, it allows a machine to be way more nimble and kind of precise in the way it flies. Instead of dragging around weight in one dimension, it just is inherently, I guess, stable. So I've been doing a lot of things to try to get the center of gravity on the machine down, and while also making it newbie friendly. With 2 bolts, you can pop up the entire center cage and open up into the machine and actually see what's going on. which makes it super durable. It's got 6mm arms, which is not really standard on a lot of machines, but considering it's a freestyle quad, I wanted to have durability. And then it's got a rail system, which I keep talking about the rail system, but the rail system really allows for a good amount of durability, and for crashes puts the carbon in the most durable orientation. Because like you can bend carbon fiber, but when you put it on its kind of nose, that's where it's strongest. So traditionally frames, I call them flat packed frames, put carbon in layers at its weakest point, and then you expect the machine to not, break. So I'm trying to build it up. So like a lot of people keep saying it looks heavy, but it's only 106 grams, which is incredibly lightweight. Like it's lighter than most 4-inch or 4mm arm frames. So especially when you're thinking about a freestyle frame, it's a super light freestyle frame. Yeah, it's a super unique frame. It has a lot of interesting properties that I want as a pilot. It's not the most durable frame by any means. Like it puts your camera right out in the open for the whole world to smash into. But as a 3D freestyle pilot, I'm generally not going straight at stuff. I'm traveling sideways and other orientations. So it's not as much of a problem for what I'm doing and the kind of flying that I actually undertake. Yeah, I'm working on that. It's been a passion project for the last year plus. Started finally 2 or 3 months ago working with Raymond Silver, aka Stingray FPV, on YouTube. And he's a local to Santa Cruz, and he saw my designs, wanted to work on a frame together, and so we took my designs, started actually sitting down in CAD and working together to make the design a reality. And so it's undergone probably 4 major revisions. Like originally it wasn't even a unicorn frame. Like the unicorn horn happened after a major conceptual change. I had a whole TPU printed front piece that had this little kind of carbon fiber piece that stuck out in the front of it. And then I thought, you know what? I could get rid of the entire TPU piece, just keep that little carbon fiber piece in the front of it, make it a unicorn horn, and put the GoPro on top. So that happened about 6 months ago. And so yeah, it's been a passion project. I'm hoping to get it out to some beta testers in the next month, so I can get some feedback on it and make some more changes to it before I release it to the public. And that's a whole thing. Releasing my own frame without an actual manufacturer to back me is kind of unheard of in the realm of FPV. Most pilots will partner with a group to actually manufacture something they put their name on. In this instance, I'm going out and manufacturing it. I'm having it manufactured. I'm working in the design process. I'm making the marketing materials. I am handling every aspect of the frame design. That I think is a huge thing. And I'm hoping that when this frame does come out, it'll last the test of time. Like this is going to be something I'm going to be flying 5 years from now and be like, yep, that was worth all the time and energy I put into it.
Well, let me say this. And you're right that not too many people do build frames in that orientation today. But in the past, some of the best frames that are still on the market today started off that way, right? Where one person went out and drew up a frame, and he got maybe his buddy to help him out, and they started producing the frames. That's how things happened before, ladies and gentlemen. This is before Lumineer became who they are, Get FPV, ready-made RC for quads and multi-rotors. This is how things got started. Like we were on RC groups and a couple of other forums, and that's how you found out about a frame. I mean, this was years ago, but this is how those things happen. And the great frames, the ones that have been around forever and have had great support, have mostly come from that era. And so I'm glad to see that it's coming from the heart. Like you're also like taking input from other people too, not just yourselves, because today we have other things to add on, right? We have Slack, we have Discord, and you're like there's groups of 10 people like that don't get as much activity as your Discord. Like I belong to a lot of Discord, little things and Slack channels and yours is like phenomenally every day.
Thanks.
Bing, 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 bing. Like it's almost annoying, but
it definitely becomes a bit exciting. I ramble all the time in my Discord.
Yeah. Like I know you crazy because me and you, that's why we get along. See. And I know how passionate you are about the hobby and the sport, and it's a great opportunity to see that. But like I said, it's good to see that you're not like stiff and it's my design, and I really appreciate that you're allowing others to help you input into your project, which is always going to make it feel like it's not just yours, it's theirs too. So then they want to buy it, right? I mean, like that's
the biggest thing. It's going to be open sourced when it gets released. It's not going to be a thing of me trying to make money from it. It's a
wait, but you gotta make some money. Wait, now, this is the part. Wait, time out.
There's no time out. I'm making the unicorn for me. People want it. I just want to make sure I can make the frame available for people that want it, so that it can live. Like for example, I'm working with Armatin, so they can actually carry replacement parts. So they can actually, from a different carbon source. But the idea is that one of the biggest things that keeps frames from really living on is replacement parts. One of the other biggest things that keeps frames from living on is, being hard to make extra accessories for. And I want people to make stuff for this. I mean, I don't want to make money. I just want to see the idea live. And that's where it's at for me. It's not about the getting caught up in the business of it. The business of it is more of a hassle for me than anything, because I'm going through.
I agree, but you gotta eat, girl. Like you gotta eat.
The first pre-order should be Zoe bound.
Right. I mean, like you gotta eat. Like you gotta remember that. You got rent, or like me, I got rent. I got rent to pay. I got car insurance to pay. I got light bill to pay. Those things are not cheap. See, like and
that's why I'm trying to work with a government contractor and doing a day job.
But then it's going back to that you're supporting the hobby instead of you guys, you're helping the hobby. You see what I'm saying? That's what I want you to do something, Zoe. Like I have great respect for you. Like
if you're asking what the next big thing I'm going to be doing is,
no, I don't. I know you're gonna be selling this frame. That's what you're gonna be doing.
He's mentoring you into the fact that you need to have your own brand making money.
I swear, this is what you got to do, my girl. This is what you got to do. You got the force. It's like, look, I'm talking to Elizabeth Warren here, trying to get her to step up. Now,
yeah. Well, I think that's the thing is like I went from an innocent point of me. I just want to figure out how to get products made, and then getting caught up in it to then making a reality.
You know how to do that. I would be. Listen, I'm defending my position on this, right?
No, it's a good position.
I want you to do something
sustainable
and be sustainable, right? You sustainable. I want this industry. There's a time like this industry for some people has paved the way for the new garages, cars, bikes. No. In your case, what you have gotten from the community is the least that this community could do for you. I mean, I've seen you sacrifice yourself in the last 3-4 years.
I feel it.
I don't
really feel that.
Sacrifice yourself anymore. I mean, I want you to give yourself, not sacrifice yourself. This is something that I have known for you for a while, right? I mean, I don't say a lot of things to you. I interject and we talk, just me and you, right? That's how we talk, right? Just me and you. And I don't, you like my little sister. So I want you to start to be supportive of being helped by the community and driving an industry, because you are part of the industry that you have created, and you need to be helped and move forward. There's some pilots out here that are making money.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I don't see why you're not one of these pilots.
Because I'm not savvy enough yet. This is the thing. This is the last the puzzle.
You have done enough. Look, this you need to sell that frame. You need to get out there and promote your frame and your brand, because you do have a brand and it's strong. It's strong. People listen to you. People conversate with you. People love the fact that you are very personal and on the level and technical. You're not just saying, "Oh, I like these props." And you're not one of those persons that say, "This is awesome. This is awesome. This is awesome. This is awesome. This is awesome." You know?
There's so many of those right now.
Right. I sat down and listened to a video a couple of days ago, and it was the dude said "awesome" 15 times in 1 minute. I'm like as many times. Well,
I can use awesome in about 15 hours. I mean,
right. I'm like, as many times you said awesome, I don't want to see what's garbage to you. Like,
oh jeez.
It's hard to get Elvin to be this passionate about something. It occurs once in a blue moon. So definitely listen to his advice, Zoe. You know, it's like you got to figure that part of it out. It's important. And, you know, we're here trying to be supportive, but we definitely want your brand to succeed. And I think I think Elvin has a point. You should open sourcing it. I think that's a definite. But like what Alex Greaves says is like, when you first create it, you have an obligation to yourself to make some money off of it so you can continue to live. But then when you made your share of the money, you can open source it and let it give it to the world to make it a better place. I totally agree on what he says. Alex Greaves,
that's what
smart
he did
guy.
with the Cloverleaf.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he did with the Cloverleaf. So like, and you know, like me and Alex, we go back further than FPV. I mean, and on a technical basis, you know, and when he developed the Cloverleaf, there was a little bit of bing, bing, bing between me and him for a little bit, you know, and I'm being honest, I stepped over a line and realized where I was at and then apologized. But the thing is that, you know, I've watched him develop that product and then give it back and then move on, you know, to the point where even if you use the product today, you're happy with the performance, but there's so many other things leading ahead of that. See, and that's what he did with that. He developed the product, he made his money, it got super cloned. Every company on the planet was making Cloverleafs. Then he gave it to the public.
There we go. Okay, let's move on. Hey, the frame looks great, Zoe. The frame looks great.
That.
Can't wait to see it. But let's move on to another project. This one's actually pretty interesting because this one's crowdfunded, and for the FPV industry, it's a little bit like we crowdfund things, but it's usually like something that's fairly affordable. These motors they're actually kind of expensive. I was just looking it up. It's like, that's a lot of money to put together a quad. So, okay, so we're talking about IQ Motor Control. They crowdfunded a new way to develop and run motors, and Zoe is the tester to that. So, Zoe, tell us a little bit about what's going on with IQ Motors.
So, not to sound like a hype beast, because I don't want to ever become a hype beast, but this changes things. IQ Motors, for those that don't know, is a crowdfunded project by IQ Motion Control, a small little startup that spun off of University of Penn. Guys in that group have been working on, or more specifically, Matt Piccoli have been working on the technologies that drive this motor in ESC. And amongst those technologies, essentially, the core of it is a brand new, essentially, rotary encoder. And for those that don't know what a rotary encoder is and why this makes a huge difference, a rotary encoder, essentially, the rotary encoder for the IQ motion control motor, and why this is so amazing, is that it allows you to record the precise precision, or with precise precision, the motor's rotation. Not just like the rotation, but its speed, where it's going, its spin up rate, and do so in a way that's faster and more reliable than a traditional motor. And so basically the way an EST knows how fast the motor is going is that I'll send a startup pulse to the motor, which gets it spinning initially. And that initial spin is essentially creating a magnetic field. And the ESC is getting feedback on that magnetic field to kind of guesstimate what the motor is doing and what needs to tell the motor to do next to get to do what it wants to do. So the magnetic encoder on the IQ motion control motors bypasses this, allows the motor to be sensed at absolute zero position. So meaning it could be spinning at, I believe, up to a 16 floating point spin of RPM a second, and actually record the rotational spin, along with change the rotational spin to the point of where you can make it spin as slow as a clock. But when you stare at it, you'll never see it move. Like it's very, very steady. So even though clocks, as you know, like little ticks, that's the tick of the motor getting a little push to push it forward. There's none of that clogging. So it's extremely smooth at the low end. And for 3D and the way I fly it specifically, this allows for a whole new world of ability, because I don't have to worry about my motors clogging and starting and stopping continuously while I fly, because they're always moving. There's no transition jitter. I can have and this is the fun part. Before the IQ motors, whenever I go to transfer from positive to negative thrust, whenever I go from positive to negative, the motor would have to stop and then start spinning again. And that causes a pause. Yeah, and also gets rid of your resolution on your throttle, because over 50 points of the resolution is actually in the ESC signal to telling it to start and stop. It reduces the actual resolution of everything. So the motors don't have that. So 1500 is stop, and 1501 is forward, and 1499 is reverse. Mm-hmm. And with and a lot of people, this is going over people's heads, because a lot of people probably don't even know how a regular motor interacts with the ESC and flight controller to make it work in the first place.
Right.
But essentially it allows the machine to start and stop without losing a beat. And so I can do 3D maneuvers that I could not do before. I can push the machine to a point that was not possible before the IQ motors, to the point where flying with anything besides the IQ motors makes me feel icky. Like that's been my other problem. Overall, the stuff I've dealt with last few months, I haven't had a readily available supply of these motors. So flying 3D has not been as fun as it had been, and it has been with the motors. But yeah, so the motors work really well, and there's other benefits too. Because of the sensor, they allow you to do like pure sine wave signals to the motor, which gets you like 7% increase of power and efficiency. You can do stuff like power boost mode. So generally motors, you have like a KV rating. KV rating doesn't matter anymore. It's about your RPM, what your actual target RPM is going to be.
Now that's impressive.
Yeah, so like there's going to be limits on it, but there's firmware updates we're working on to be able to make it so you as a user can tune what those limits are. Because this motor is not just for the average drone pilot. This is for people that want to push the boundaries of technology and need a speed controller, and ESC, and motor combo that can do that. And it also has a new closed loop mode. And this is actually really new. This is something new that's happened since I started working on them. The new closed loop mode essentially allows the ESC, based off of previous data, to know exactly how much power they can dump into a propeller to get to spin as quickly as possible. So they've been doing tests on the back end to verify the data of each prop. So they've been testing a bunch of 3D props, and they're adding these 3D props to the interface.
Mm-hmm.
And the interface, essentially, you pick what prop you're going to be using, and from there, it puts very defined settings into the motor to get to spin up and spin down faster. So it gives it very precise control of the motor. And as well as a closed loop feedback of what the motor is doing and what it actually wants to do. So they've been doing a lot of cool stuff, like stuff that we don't have currently, they're doing. And that's kind of been one of the hardest technical challenges with any new technologies, implementing it. And so with any crowdfunded project, especially with a new technology-based crowdfunded project, there's really big hurdles to cross. So they've been crossing those hurdles for the last few months. I would say, missed a couple dates as far as the Kickstarter goes, or the crowdfunding goes. But they have been keeping their heads down. They've been working really hard with manufacturers. They've had, at this point in time, I believe, like 7 revisions of the module. And they've gotten it to the point where it is manufacturable, it's ready to be produced, and it's basically ready for prime time. So now it's essentially, the alpha testing, in my opinion, is done. We're getting into beta. We're hammering out all the major last little bugs to make sure it's perfectly ready for release, making sure that it has beta flight pass-through, making sure that, if not having beta flight pass-through at release, shortly after release. So allow you to configure the ESCs and do everything you need without having to use a tool, potentially. And also allow you to take advantage of the power-saving modes, and stuff like that. And the last feature too, and this is actually something a lot of long-range pilots are going to really love, is that they're the smoothest running motors you will ever fly with. And why that is because the technology driving them gets rid of the clogging effect. If you spin up any traditional motor, you will feel the vibration, just the motor vibration is introducing into the frame. That is virtually non-existent with the IQ Motion Control module. There's no vibration getting created because there's no clogging effect happening with when the motor is actually in use. So it's not creating, what happens, it creates little micro cogs when it's spinning, and that translates into the frame as vibration, which causes most of the problems. Then tuning out motor vibration is really hard. Tuning out prop issues a little bit easier, but you can't tune it out if you've got a prop issue or a motor issue, because then your props won't matter. So for the long-range pilot, for people that want ultimate performance, that want a snappier machine, that want, the actual cutting edge, IQ is going to be the way to go. So that's a project I'm passionate about. And right now, I'm not making money from them. I'm simply working with them to help bring this product to market because I want the thing to exist. I want to fly these things on my freaking unicorn that I built.
Well, at $88, I mean, it's.
But you have to realize
you're getting paid. You're getting motors.
Yes, it's true. This is very true.
Oh, that's funny.
If the box is big enough, I'll be happy.
I'm at the point where I'd be down to buy them if they let me buy them, because the modules are that good and I need them in my life.
I would definitely say that this is kind of very interesting because the motor technology that we've been using has been around since like the age of time, and it hasn't changed all that much, to be completely honest with you. If you look back at the historical record on how these motors spin and whatnot.
I mean, we've been using off-the-shelf, basically 3D helicopter ESC firmware and ESCs. Like back in the day, BL Heli, that should be a really big surprise to people. That was a helicopter-based ESC firmware. And then drones became a thing, and the developers started working on drone-specific features, and then it got to the point where they just spun it off as a whole new thing for like BL Heli 32, which is realistically just a more refined version of it for basically drone specific use. But yeah, so I'm a big BL Heli 32 fan. If you're not flying IQ, BL Heli 32 is such a way to go. It's close, but it's not IQ. It's definitely better than anything else as far as a sensorless motor, but it's not even close.
I hope that this company definitely protects its IP, intellectual property.
They are.
Like, if they can make it work for our community, which is in essence pretty small if you think about it, but the applications for the commercial side and the business side is absolutely huge. If they can prove it works here and get some real data, real world feedback, I think they have a really good product that either they can sell to a bigger company or they can make their own company.
That's
Tesla 9.
Okay,
Tesla 9 with an IQ motor in it.
I don't know about that, but I didn't hear what you said, Zoe. What'd you say, Zoe?
That's kind of the point. I mean, they in order for other commercial entities to take them serious as far as their technology goes, they have to prove their technology actually works and exists. So the best way for them to do that is to basically introduce it to the drone market. So by the time they develop this for consumer use and it's actually consumer ready, then it's rarely easy for them to just go over to other companies and work with them to integrate that into their products. There's I keep forgetting the name of the company, but they are working with a couple companies right now, actually. One of them drone based, one of them is a surfboard. So electric surfboard. Using IQ stuff. And then medical technologies too, using for centrifuges, for blood based machines. Then you have
That's awesome.
Yeah, and if they can miniaturize the technology further, then you can start doing. For example, if they can make a micro drone motor that's for a little 2-inch, then you could do stuff as far as fine motor control to recreate a human hand and do it fairly cheaply too, because the biggest thing people have to realize is that these might be expensive for the general consumer, but when you consider the technological key that opens the door with this stuff, it's huge, the whole back end of robotics industry. So it's really kind of, I see them as opening Pandora's box, and hopefully 10 years from now, if everything pans out, I might be working for them.
Hey, you never know. They're working on so many other things. That's just not the problem they're concentrating on right now, but eventually it will.
It's a problem, because it's not just a scientific problem. It's not just a math problem. It's an engineering problem. It's a marketing problem. It's a market problem. It's bringing a product that didn't exist to market and making it available to the world to consume and then regurgitate into other products.
Definitely.
So it's a technological movement.
Yes.
And not to make it sound all hype. So again, I didn't want to sound like a hype beast.
It's just us. It's just the show. It's how it is. Don't worry, Zoe. I'm going to be pinging you for some contacts to get them onto the podcast, because they do have some interesting tech I want to talk about.
You should. And they're great people. If you ever get a chance to meet Matt and John, they are some of the sweetest people I've ever met, and they are wholeheartedly into making technological change. This is about making it a reality for them, and they're wholeheartedly passionate about making that reality happen. So I'd love to hear them on your show.
Yes, cool. All right, we're going to move on. Otherwise, we'll be here for 3 hours, and that's totally possible. This is the most fascinating one, and when you brought it up and Elvin lit up, I was like, can that really happen? And that's the talk about a 3D whoop. Everybody loves whoops because you can fly them everywhere. They're cheap and stuff. But a 3D whoop, tell me about that.
Do you have to talk about the history of a whoop before we talk about the whoop? But
no, we'll be here for another 20 years.
No, hell no.
Well, if you want to abbreviate it.
Once upon
if you want to abbreviate it, you can.
I absolutely love the whoop. I love Jesse Perkins. I'm such a huge Tiny Whoop fan. And for a lot of people that may or may not know, for me, when I was flying 5 inches and XClass and stuff, I'd fly tiny whoops for fun. That became the way I had fun again with FPV when I got burnt out making content / flying like other machines. And so I paid for that stuff with my own money. And one of the things I bought at the time, because one, I was talking to them and it was available, I needed it, and they were at the trade show, was a newbie drone. essentially the Acrobee, and it was the V1. This is back at Flight Fest West 2017. And
Yeah.
it was a really good event. I really enjoyed that event. It was a lot of fun. But so I needed a whoop, so I wanted one. I was working a booth. I was doing XClass stuff. I was hanging out with fans. Like, I was super swamped. So I worked with, talked to Christopher and a few others at the newbie drone booth. I bought the drone right then and there, and then they offered to help me build it. And so we got it built, and I fell in love with the little Acrobee. And I've flown the original Ductrix-based Tiny Whoop, and absolutely fell in love with the idea of being tiny and being a little drone and being able to fly around where I want. It's a beautiful vision. So I fell in love with Acrobee. I just flew it around. I had it for over a year. I started teaching classes at Carrillo College. I bring it out for students to fly around because it was durable and could take abuse. And I've had over 60 people fly my original Acrobee without breaking it. So it was a really good newbie, drone to really get a newbie drone. Ha 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 ha! Great marketing, guys. It was a great drone to get people into it, and so then I started kind of talking to them, and had a good relationship with them. Never really like business related. And then we started talking about possibly doing like more of a business relationship. And I brought up that, what, we should make a 3D Whoop. I'd love to work with you guys on something. And I think a 3D Whoop could change the world, because 3D inherently with a 5-inch, and this is where it's at right now. 5-inch drones, you have 5-inch 3D props. You really don't have 3D props for anything smaller than a 5-inch.
Yeah.
And with the regulations coming, with sub 250 class starting to be more unregulated, and then the 5 inches being more regulated, sub 250 3D drone in my mind just sticks out as something that needs to happen. So I pitched that idea to Newbie Drones, and Newbie Drones like, you know what? We're working on some stuff. Maybe we can collaborate and make what we're working on good for what you want to do, and then also potentially release our own version of that's Zoe specific, that has upgraded motors potentially. It's more 3D oriented. Like the original one would be able to do 3D, but this one would also be like a 5-inch and a 2-inch package kind of thing. I've been working on that now for about 2.5 months, 2.5, 3 months, but actually working on the project now for 2.5 months, talking about it for 3 months. So it's relatively new, but they've prototyped up 3D propellers. We have a frame that's been prototyped up. There's some new hardware that they're working on that's being prototyped right now. The frames we're prototyping and working on. And I've been doing some flight testing of the first prototype. It is powerful. I am actually really surprised by how much power it had, to the point that when I tried to do 3D inside, it had too much power and I broke it almost instantly. So that's testing. That happens.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I am currently chipping away at rebuilding it and waiting on some frames and stuff for it. But yeah, so that's a project I'm working on. It's really challenging because 3D is very hard on the hardware, and hasn't really been miniaturized yet to the point of it being like juicy, quote unquote.
But
so
that says that says something for the electronics. I mean, that's one of the things I can tell you, that like I've had the Inductrix, a couple of them, and like I don't like them. Like, I mean, they've not given me the performance that I've seen other people have, and I don't know what it was. I can't explain it. I've had brand new ones right out of the package and flown them, and I can never get the feel that I want out of one. So I just moved on and went to an actual 2-inch, and then a 2.5, then a 3-inch, right? The 1404 Rotor X motor setup, right? And I love that, but I would have loved to see a tiny whoop like that could flip over. I mean, that says a lot for it, because we know that you lose efficiency with 3D when you flip over. I mean, the props are normally
it's
not meant to go in that direction.
Over. It's the power to give yourself throttle before the flip over, basically be able to do it mid-air.
Right.
And then catch yourself after you do a trick.
Right.
So it's really difficult to get all that into a very small package. Ironically, the first prototype is too powerful. Like, it's too fast and too pissed off and too heavy to really fight indoors and do what I want. So it's kind of, but the thing is, it works great outdoors. Like, for an outdoor safe drone that you don't have to worry about bumping into people, at least not as much. It's great. Like, it really does fill that role. My dream, though, and what I'm going to keep pushing for, is a Whoop that you can fly indoors and do TikToks over your own head. Like,
that would be fun. That would be fun.
I'm not going to be happy until I have a machine where I can TikTok over my own head and be safe doing it. Because to me, if that's available to people, not only can they get a machine that's, relatively cheap, it won't be breaking constantly, it's easy for them to start learning 3D on, but also allows them to progress their skills to the point where if they were to go to a 5-inch 3D setup, it would feel and act relatively similar. It might take 8 months. I mean, it might be around Christmas time when this thing is really properly dialed in. That's part of product development. That's part of making something that hasn't exist.
True.
Yeah. So that's one of many things. Unicorn. That. Yeah. Anything else, guys?
That's all I have written down. But if you want to catch us up on any other projects, we can before we start wrapping up.
I'm looking for a drone house.
Yeah.
Drone house. What's your vision of a drone house?
Okay. So this is important because I've been thinking about this for a while. Basically, the motorhome for me is a stepping stone to the drone house.
Okay.
It allows me a chance to kind of live freely, quote unquote, while I look for a place to settle down a little bit more permanently, and hopefully be able to afford it and continue to afford it and do what I love. Again, can't live in Santa Cruz, too expensive. For example, out here where I'm at right now in 29 Palms, I can get a 2-bedroom house with a yard and ability to fly whenever I want for $700 a month. For $2,000 a month, I could get a 1-bedroom apartment in Santa Cruz, California, where I can't fly almost anywhere in the city. So that is the hunt for the drone house, is somewhere, and this is what I really love, is right now I have a drone, goggles, transmitter, and a pile of batteries next to my door in the RV. I am seconds away from burning a battery whenever I want. And that is something I want to continually have in my life. So the drone house is really my white whale right now. It's more of a long-term project. I'm not in a massive rush to settle down somewhere. I want to try to find the right spot. So if people out there really want to help make this a reality and want to help Team Zoe, I think that's the first time I said that. If you want to help Team Zoe, I have plans for that too.
Sounds great. Team Unicorn.
Pretty much. I mean, Team Z, for everyone that's still a misfit but wants to fly FPV and do it, with style, I guess. My weird style. Yeah, Team House, and primarily just a place for me to fly, continue working, create a workshop, create an environment where I can train pilots. One of the biggest things I love to do is train people how to fly and help them push past barriers in their own flying abilities. Learning to fly can be extremely daunting. You're learning a lot of different things at once, and it can take years of practice. Even then, you can still have a lot of stumbling blocks that you didn't really walk over properly before and get caught up on. That's kind of the main goal of the drone house, is to have a facility / location for me to do that. Also for me to have a shop proper, and have a mailing address, because it's really hard to get stuff mailed to me without having a mailing address. Not impossible. I got a P.O. box. If anyone wants to send me some weird stuff, send P.O. Box 1944, 29 Palms, California, 92277.
There
and
you go.
Let's ruin it forever. Sorry, guys, at the post office. So the drone house should hopefully happen somewhere in the future. I'm not 100% sure where I'm going to put it, but the ideal being less than $1,000 a month and have a location where I can fly, potentially invite pilots out to crash on my couch and train with me, and potentially keep making content and enjoy life a little bit without having to worry about where I'm going to be or what I'm doing or where I'm going, and still be able to do that when I want to do that.
I think what you should totally do is try to find land to park your RV and slowly build a house or build your. That's what a lot of people out here do. Is
part of a conspiracy or something? Jeez,
that's what people in Kentucky do.
I've had offers. That is a possibility.
That's one I truly support, to go buy some land out in the middle of nowhere or outside of the city. And move your RV on there and get power on it and slowly, accumulate get the foundation done and work your way up. I will suggest that if you're ever going to build something, make sure you get a basement.
Oh, you are a funny man. Hey, you know what? To build a large shed that you could call your own workspace nowadays, not that hard. There's a lot of
$4,000.
So
$4,000.
I was gonna say tiny houses. We'll just do a bunch of tiny houses for pilots.
You could do that. You could do tiny house, tiny house training class.
Oh dear. Okay.
Stop rails. Let's end this whole shebang.
All right, we're off the rails now. That's your fault.
Hey, before we end this podcast, I wanted to, if you guys don't know, we got some DRL simulator codes, and before the show, I asked Zoe to pick a number from 1 to another number, and she picked the number, and she picked the number 3, and that number belongs to the person that commented on the post I posted in Facebook on FPV Podcast's page about the code. So the third person to respond, his name is Chris Walker. Congratulations, Chris Walker.
There you go.
And you can say thank you to Zoe on you getting the key code for simulator, DRL simulator. Thank you guys over at DRL. We really appreciate this opportunity.
Yes. It's always good to give away stuff, but let's go ahead and move on. Zoe, if people want to help you out, give you ideas, correspond with you, what can they reach out to you at?
You can find me on YouTube, so youtube.com/Zoe Full Throttle, Zoe FPV on Google. I'm on Instagram, Facebooks, all the social media platforms for better and worse. If you want to help support what I'm doing, my content and stuff I'm working on for the community at large and else, patreon.com/Zoe FPV. That's a huge thing for creators right now, especially with trying to fund things that make sense but are not quite fundable under traditional means. So yeah, that's kind of my pitch for following me.
Discord.
Yeah, I was gonna say go to my YouTubes. There's a link to my Discord. If you don't know what Discord is, it's like a IRC chat room for people. I was gonna say nerds, but I'm a nerd, so yeah, nerds.
It's people.
It's cool people. Yeah, it's cool. There's a lot of really cool like drone chat rooms and stuff. I've had mine for I don't know, almost like a year now. It's kind of grown. I call it my little garden. I chat in there. A lot of cool people. We have different chat rooms. From the Freestyle Federation, where I talk about the freestyle rules and stuff that I'm working on, to Zoe Rambles chat room, which is just me literally doing like a live update of what the hell I'm doing. So yeah, if you want to really stalk me on the internet, that's where you can go.
Yeah, get close and personal with Zoe.
And remember, my P.O. box is 1944 Moms.
That is funny. Hey, Zoe, stay positive. Be, a positive effort in the community, and
continue to be you. That's what he meant.
And
continue to be you.
And yeah, enjoy FPV, and you know, we're really glad that we caught up with you, and you know, see that you're doing well, and we hope that you will continue to do well.
Better.
Yep.
I'm glad you're doing better.
Okay.
I'm looking at making a comeback. Love you all. Until next year when you have me back again.
That's probably. Elvin always lobbies for you to come on, so don't worry. It will happen.
All right.
All right, we're out.
My place.